Later this week, Cobra Kai Season 4 drops on Netflix, but I've already been able to see it. So let's talk about it. Cobra Kai Season 4 picks up where Cobra Kai Season 3 left off, with Daniel and Johnny joining together to try and defeat Cobra Kai. Real quick before I let you know what I thought about it, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. What's your excitement level for the season? And if you've seen it, let me know what you thought about it. This is a spoiler-free review, so if you leave comments down below, make sure they are spoiler-free and only reveal things that have been revealed in the trailers or through casting announcements. With that said, let's get started. And the best thing about this season is that it's the most focused season since the original.
You stay focused.
The last season left off with this challenge in regards to the All Valley tournament, and that is the focus, that is the target for this entire season, and it builds everything around that. When it comes to the narrative forward momentum, you know the exact event that we are aiming towards, but then they build the season all around how that affects each individual character. Why do they want to win, and how are they going about trying to win?
I just want what's best for Miguel and all of your students.
So now you know what's best for Miguel.
And it's interwoven with their character arc, their character development throughout the season, and that's true of each and every character. Therefore, when you get to the final tournament and the season does spend a lot of time on the actual tournament, you care about the results of each individual match because it matters for the plot, the tournament, who progresses, who wins, but also for each of the individual characters. Both people fighting, what they do matters for their character arc, and so it works on a bunch of different levels when you get there. And another thing this season does really well is it balances the characters a little bit more in the way that the show has always been about how people have both good and bad sides. Bad guys do good things and good people do bad things. And this season, I think, balances that, shows that, represents that better than the last couple of seasons have. And because of this complicated web of plot points and character arcs, you really care about what happens in every single match. There's the outcome that you want for the dojo that you're rooting for, but just as important, you care about the choices that the characters make that leads to the outcome of the match. You might not want Cobra Kai to win, but you care about the choices that that character is making. And this is also true of the senseis as much as it is of the students that are competing. It just does a great job of giving everyone an arc that all comes together at this focal point of the tournament. And as I mentioned before, I just think this season does a better job of balancing the characters, in particular, Tori and Robbie. Last season, I don't think they handled either one of them particularly well. With Tori, they tried to make her sympathetic by having her landlord trying to bang her or something. But then from there, they just portrayed her as a sociopath. And I didn't think the sympathy angle worked. This season, I think, does a lot more to balance her out without softening her. You just get better context and a series of events that portray her in a light that you understand her better. Likewise with Robbie, they've always kind of had this back and forth with him. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he a good guy that does bad things, or is he a bad guy that does good things? And I think at this season, they show that in a way that you understand kind of that the two competing voices in his head much better to make him a more balanced character and not just an infuriating one. And of course, because of where the last season left off, it means that this season you get a lot of Daniel and Johnny together. The friendship moments, the competitiveness, the differences of opinion on how to train students.
Oh, we're gonna get sued here.
Sue me for what?
Seeing them training together, all of that fun stuff. But then also the trickle down of that is there's a whole bunch of stuff with Daniel and Miguel that just has its own interesting dynamic. And then likewise, you have Johnny with Samantha that just adds all these new kind of layers to the dynamics, and you kind of see everything from a new perspective. And speaking of interesting character dynamics that help explore the big themes and focuses of the season, we get Terry Silver's return, and I thought they handled this really, really nicely. The character of Terry Silver was probably the most ridiculous and over-the-top thing about the original Karate Kid trilogy. And in general, Cobra Kai is kind of this exaggerated, over-the-top version of Karate Kid. What's interesting, though, is they bring in Terry Silver and they ground him a lot more. They give more nuance to his character and they give context for his actions.
You just don't want to admit there's always been a little Cobra Kai in you.
So here, instead of just being this screaming, cackling sociopath, they really make him a multi-dimensional character that's trying to process his past, deal with his friendship with Kreese, while still being that guy that was in Karate Kid 3. And I just thought it was a really nice dynamic of how he progresses throughout the season, where he is at the start, what he's like in the middle, and where he's at the end of the season. It is a very interesting journey that he's on, and you see him in a very different light. But all of that, once again, goes back to the focus of the season, that it is all about why do these different characters want to win the tournament and how are they going about trying to do that? And even through the relationship between Silver and Kreese, it explores those ideas and themes on all kinds of different levels, so much so that you care about the choices that each of them make during the final tournament. And I would say it's pretty safe to say this is the most emotional season of the show yet, where when you get into the back half of this season, some of these broken characters reach their breaking point, have moments of clarity, realizations about what's going on, and the show gives these characters and these actors moments to really go all out and show their humanity, emote, break down and cry, have moments of triumph. It has all of that. And one more thing I want to talk about during this season is that you do get some fantastic Johnny moments with the political incorrectness. Without wanting to say too much, there's a sequence where he's trying to recruit some girls. I was laughing out loud during the entire sequence and what they did with it. Overall, I've been anticipating season 4 ever since season 3 ended. And if anything, I think it actually surpassed my expectations for the season, though I did have some problems. So let's move into the mixed aspects of the season. The big thing here is that the interpersonal conflicts can be a bit much.
You have a problem with that?
As I mentioned before, this season does a great job of balancing out the characters a little bit. The show has always been about these complicated relationships and how misunderstandings can have dire consequences and how each of us have good and bad. As you get into the back half of this season, everyone has a clear character flaw. Everyone is holding back just a little bit from being that better version of themselves. There's so many moments where someone does something, you're like, why are you doing that? That it kind of took me to the edge at certain points in time. Like, you're so frustrated. And there's that fine line between like, this is exactly what I want from this show, and this is a little bit too much. I am too wound up, I'm too frustrated by all the characters, and this one toes the line a little bit because it just really ratchets up that interpersonal conflict. The characters are very stubborn at times. You're just like, just dial it back, step back, just listen to each other. What are you doing? You could resolve this if you would just, all of you, take one step back and breathe. And that's what you tune in for when it comes to this show, but it really pushes it quite a bit when you're in like episode 6, 7, 8, like right before the tournament. It's frustrating at times. And like I said, this is mixed category. It's not bad. It was just a bit much at times with some of these characters. From there, let's move on to the bad. And the big thing here is that the season at times struggles to balance all of the different characters and subplots. It's focused, but there's just a lot in there because you have all the returning main cast members. You have Terry Silver added as a new main cast member. You have Daniel's son being promoted to a much more significant role in the show. You have kind of this new character added that has this thing going on with Daniel's son. Plus, there's some returning characters that didn't appear in season 3. And so because of that, There's just a lot kind of moving around. So this subplot with Daniel's son and this other kid is huge in episodes 2 and 3. And then they disappear for 3 episodes and then they come back. And there's kind of a lot of stuff like that. Likewise with Hawk, he's huge for a little bit, disappears for a few episodes, then he's a big focus, and then he's not. And that's what happens when you have this many main characters, all of which who have a subplot. It's just tough to balance that at times. And the next thing is something I also mentioned during my season 3 review, but by this point in time in the show, there's just a few too many things going on that are actual felonies, and the characters need to just get the police involved. And all throughout the season, there's little moments where they're just trying to find excuses and ways around getting the police involved. And at certain point in times, it just strains too much credibility that everyone is going out of their way to not contact the police about all these felonies being committed. Final issue here, there's just some inconsistent characterizations where characters just change on a dime. Their personality matches what the scene, sequence, episode requires them to be to progress the plot forward. And especially like with the dynamic between Terry Silver and Kreese, I didn't feel like it was fully clear exactly what was going on with either one of them. They each kind of changed a little bit too much in what they wanted and how they were reacting to each other. And I think they needed to find a way to get to the plot points that they wanted to have while being clearer in the motivation of each person, what was driving them and what made them make the choices that they made and how they responded to the choices that the other person made. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts on this one, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. What do you think about season 4? And if you haven't seen it yet, what's your excitement level? Also, I've done a bunch of Cobra Kai coverage in the past. You can check it out in this playlist right up here. Also, once the season comes out, I will be updating a bunch of my rankings, and I'll be talking about the show extensively with spoiler review, character rankings, season rankings, all of that fun stuff coming next week. Overall, season 4 of Cobra Kai might have a few issues here and there, but it delivered exactly what I wanted, and in certain ways exceeded my expectations. By having a more clear focused narrative, it allows each character to have a clear character arc that all pays off so well as you move into the finale. I highly recommend the season. It's one of the best seasons of this show. If you enjoyed this video, I've got more like it. You can check out that playlist right over there. Also, I will be updating a bunch of those rankings coming next week. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.